Okay, it was only approximately 2 months ago that we had a vote in Dáil Éireann on fox hunting, and Rory, you are recently quoted in the Westmeath Examiner on the issue. Can you tell me, Rory, what you thought of that vote 2 months ago in the Dáil?
Well, first of all, I thought that I was not surprised about the vote, which an awful lot of people find interesting because an awful lot of people were thinking, oh, it could go one way or the other. It might go one way or the other. We don't know. Maybe fox hunting will be banned. On the last vote, fox hunting was never going to be banned, and there's one main reason. The main reason is the party whip system in Ireland. And for people that don't understand that, and I can tell from the poll that we did, there's a lot of people who are unsure what the party whip system is. This is where the hierarchy of the parties, the people in charge, decide on how all the politicians will vote on certain issues. So even if you voted somebody in that to represent your views may or may not be they may not be expressed by your politician. They may not be followed by your politician, even though you elected them in, because they are told by the hierarchy how they want them to vote. And one of the things, like some of the stuff that came out in the poll, just shows that there's an awful lot of it's kind of adding to voter apathy and stuff when politicians are not listening to voters. But on your question about what I thought of it, I thought that it was expected because the main parties told their voters, this is how we want you to vote. We want you to vote, or told their politicians, we want you to vote against this fox hunting bill. So they had to do what they would do. They had to vote against it. If they did not vote against it, they risked being sanctioned, which could have been kicked out of their party. This is going from Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, even Sinn Féin as well, which I think is crazy. Because one of the questions in the poll as well said, when legislation is supported by a large majority of the public, when that's voted down, it makes me less likely to vote in future elections. Now, 46% of people agreed with that from non-government voters. So you're talking about the likes of Sinn Féin voters. 46% of them have said when their voices are not heard, when they are not represented by their politicians, they're less likely to vote again. And that's why I think that's really the crux of the issue. The politicians need to realise that their voters are going to stop. They're adding to voter apathy. People are going to stay at home, and voter turnout will get lower and lower if they are not listening to the politician, or if they're not listening to their electorate, as they did so in the past in the fox hunting bill. Yeah, we commissioned the
All right.
poll. So we paid for it. We raised money through our Facebook page and through all of our supporters to commission the poll so that we'd be able to find out these questions. So one of the main findings in the poll, one of the questions that was asked was fox hunting with dogs should be banned in Ireland. In total, 73% of Irish people agree with that, and that is consistent with the poll that was done a number of years ago, where 73% of people also agreed that fox hunting with dogs should be banned in Ireland. If you remember before, or when the vote was taken and before the vote was made, an awful lot of politicians were creating a narrative and saying this is rural Ireland against urban Ireland, and that that it's all urban people talking about this and not rural Ireland. And that's why we asked the people at the Red Sea poll to break down those results, and could they show us how many people in rural Ireland were against fox hunting and how many people in urban Ireland were against fox hunting. And that worked out as 75% of people in urban areas believe it should be banned, and 68% of rural Ireland. So if you think of that, that's over 2/3 of rural Ireland are against fox hunting with dogs. They want to see it banned. Yet the narrative was been pushed again and again throughout all of that, even through our presidential campaign. Heather Humphreys was talking about it being a rural pursuit, whereas now we can clearly see through this Red Sea poll that 2/3 of rural Ireland want it banned. You know, there's an awful lot of people out there that are not being listened to. It also showed that we also see that 60% of people said that the use of the party whip on these kind of issues affects trust in politicians. Again, this will lead to voter apathy and will make people not want to vote in future. We see that 2 out of 10 of the people overall say that they would not want to vote again when they're not been listened to. So, like for politicians, especially for the likes of Sinn Féin, I voted Sinn Féin in the past, and we broke it down. Non-government voters, 46% say that they would not be likely to vote or less likely to vote in future elections because of this. And this is at a time when Sinn Féin should be pushing hard to get into government. But they're adding to the apathy, they're adding to the problems, their own problems as well. They need to look at it from that point of view. They need to look at it and not from just listening. There's an awful lot of farm lobby groups out there and lobby groups that don't want to see fox hunting or that don't want to see it banned. And those are the voices that Sinn Féin are choosing to listen to. Sinn Féin's Ardesh is coming up in April of this year, and they have said before that it is something they're going to talk about. I've heard multiple politicians and representatives of Sinn Féin quoting or saying again and again that most of our party want fox hunting banned, that they think it is a colonial pursuit. They think it is something that does not belong in Ireland, in any part of Ireland. So if we're having an awful lot of the actual representatives saying that, we're having the voters saying that, we're having all voters across the system saying that, it's time to change the narrative and to realise that Irish people in general do not want to see fox hunting. They want it banned across Ireland. And if our politicians don't start listening, people are going to be less likely to vote, and then which gives them less political capital, the politicians, the whole political system only works when people are represented in a democratic system.